You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and it's that time again, Monday, the start of the week, to rank all 8 teams in the USFL and recap this past weekend's games as we do so. So make sure you comment down below. Let me know, how would you rank all 8 of these teams throughout the entire USFL? How are you feeling about this past weekend's games? And the way you're feeling about your team going into the final stretch of the playoffs. We've got 2 more weeks to go in the regular season before we jump into USFL playoff time. There's a lot to discuss, a lot to get into, so make sure you are a part of that discussion. But we're going to dive right into the thick of things, beginning with the 2 bottom teams in the USFL, in my opinion, right now, beginning at number 8 with the New Jersey Generals, and then at number 7 with the Michigan Panthers. So the Generals now falling to the Showboats 25-16, a team that has, and we've kind of touched on this the last few weeks now, but just completely lost their identity on offense. Dakota Prukop ended up coming in, getting some action, and he was a bit of a mixed bag. At this point, I'm kind of over the Kyle Lauletta experiment. I was really hoping that maybe by some chance we'd see DeAndre Johnson this week. Ultimately, that ended up not being the case, and you know, like I said, Prukop was kind of a mixed bag. He had some plays here or there where you thought, you know, man, I really wonder where he would have been if this team was more willing to go with him earlier in the season instead of waiting until this point in the year, because I keep going back to it. That first time that they played the Stallions, he looked good in the back half of that game. 14 of 17 on completions. He gave some life to this offense, and he can move with his legs. We saw him. He has ability, and coming into a game when you're not necessarily expecting to, whereas you're actually getting first team reps in practice and you're prepped to go as the starter, could potentially lead to better play. So I am very curious where this team would stand offensively if Prukop maybe ends up being the starter next week, but I'm kind of over the Lauletta experience now, and it's unfortunate because this defense has been really good. DJ Daniel came away with another interception, nearly 2, but got called for the PI on the second one. He's an excellent corner. This defense altogether is an excellent unit, and I hate to see it be wasted with just a complete inability to find yourself on offense this late in the season. Then at number 7, you have the Michigan Panthers losing to the New Orleans Breakers 24-20. This game might go down as one of the most just like odd and honestly poor, I guess you probably should say poor coaching games I've seen in the USFL so far, I would say in the first 2 years. And we saw some pretty crazy stuff last year with the Maulers, but Mike Nolan might be on the verge of being one and done right now. I don't like calling for people's jobs, but I will say this. Between the challenge that I still don't really understand what the Panthers were challenging about when the pass was dropped in the end zone, but for whatever reason, you know, Michigan, somebody told him to challenge that play, and I don't know for what, but for whatever reason, they challenged it, and it ended up just being like a fancy timeout, I guess you could say. And then on top of that, just the management overall of timeouts late in the game, the Panthers found themselves in a position wishing they had one of their timeouts in that second half. And I mean, they were finished with their timeouts with what, like 10, 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. There was just a lot of poor management going on by the coaching staff in this game. Never mind just kind of what you're seeing on the field, but I got to give credit to the players because, you know, they were taking advantage of opportunities. They were this close to pulling off that upset victory. I mean, and it really comes down to ineffectiveness on the offense. Josh Love even had a pretty solid game, I guess you could say, back-to-back week now, where, you know, he looked pretty good, and it was just, there was no rushing attack, and again, you're out of timeouts, you feel rushed, there was weird decision-making going on by the coaching staff, and it's unfortunate, because you have guys like Frank Ginda now, who has 3 Defensive Player of the Week honors, you have Levante Taylor, who has not let up a touchdown so far this season, and then Brandon Speaks, who's an absolute unit on the defensive line. There's so much to love about this team, and even playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Reggie Corbin is one of them, Trey Quinn's another. Like, there's a lot of good talent on this team, and for whatever reason, it's just week in and week out, they can't seem to figure it out and finish things off. And I'm kind of starting to look at, you know, there's a lot of talent on this team. Maybe it's the coaching. Maybe it's the game planning. Maybe it's the scheme. I don't know what it is exactly, but I just feel like I look at this Panthers roster and I see too much talent for them to be where they are right now on the cusp of potentially missing the playoffs. Thankfully, they are the better of the bottom teams in the North, but right now it's just this team shouldn't be where it is right now, and it's frustrating. It really is to me. Looking at the next two teams, though, moving on, at numbers 6 and number 5. At the number 6 spot, we are looking at the Pittsburgh Maulers, and at number 5, we're looking at the New Orleans Breakers. So if you'll notice anything, if you watched my power rankings last week, as of right now, 0 changes. Nobody has moved, and I will stand firm with the rankings that I have right now. The Pittsburgh Maulers just continue to be like this close and so close, but so far away from being where they need to be to come out victorious in games. And I keep looking at just the absolute lack of a true running game. It's poor offensive line play, and it's just an inability to run the football with your running backs. We talked about it a lot during the preview for the game with the Gamblers, and it's just until you have a legitimate ground game and teams aren't game planning, knowing that, like, if we just come out and play defense, we're going to stop their run, and then you just have to put it in the quarterback's hands at that point and see what he does, and he has to play Superman the entire game. It's awful because you have another phenomenal defense. We just talked about the Panthers right now. A lot of good players on their defense. Same thing with the Maulers. We're watching really good defenses get wasted away. It's a very bizarre thing going on in the USFL right now where teams that have really good defenses, because the Panthers have a ton of talent. The Generals have a phenomenal defense statistically. They have been putting up really good numbers, or I guess holding off really good numbers every single week. And then the Pittsburgh Maulers defense, for a while considered the best defense in the USFL, and I would argue still has a stake to that claim in some capacity, although they've suffered from lackluster offense the last few weeks. And then it comes down to, you're getting, and the Maulers have this weird issue where, like, when it comes to coverage on special teams, they struggle, but the actual special team specialists, the guys that are making plays in terms of returns, look really good. Kicker's doing really good. Chris Blewett, excellent job by him. Unfortunately, misses the only field goal that matters the most at the end, and nobody's talking about the 4 field goals he made prior to that to put them in position to even have an opportunity to win that game late. They're just talking about the meme Chris Blewett at the end of the game, and I really hate that for him because this is a guy that has done an excellent job for the Maulers. He is a big reason why they're even close in some of their games offensively, because the offense is certainly not getting into the end zone as much as you'd like them to see. And I hate that that's how that game finishes off for him because, again, you don't even remember the other 4 field goals he made at that point. You're just looking at the missed field goal wide at the end of the game. And it's unfortunate that that's how that's looked at. I hate where the Maulers are offensively. I wish that their offensive line was just a little bit better so they could get something going on the ground and make their offense a little less one-dimensional, because right now they are as one-dimensional as you can possibly conceive. It's literally, what is Troy Williams going to do with the football? Because it's up to him. If he can't distribute or if he can't make a play with his legs, you're pretty much shutting down this team right now, and it's awful to watch. But they're still in it. And I would say that they're more in it than the other 2 North Division teams I have ranked at the bottom, so that's why they're at 6. At number 5, we have the New Orleans Breakers. Now, this is a team right now that I have at number 5 that is currently sitting at 5-3 on the season. It wasn't a pretty win, but it is a win, so I will give the Breakers credit for that win over the Panthers. However, I am still concerned about this team. I will say that ball distribution has gotten a lot better over recent weeks, and I think it's been paramount to them figuring out to be able to fight for that second playoff spot in the South and ultimately make a potential run towards the championship. So credit to them. Johnny Dixon, absolute stud, deserved that Offensive Player of the Week award. He won this week, but it really is coming down to just McLeod Bethel-Thompson and some of the mistakes that he is making right now. I don't know if he's starting to crack because he's been playing so much football over the last year. He played an entire CFL season, ended in November, jumped back, and a lot of people have brought that up. Is it fatigue? Is it just mistakes being made? Is it the offensive line play regressing a little bit because he has been under a little bit more pressure? I don't necessarily know what the answer is, but the McLeod Bethel Thompson kept the Panthers in this game, and I don't really know how to like put that in any other way. He had the interception towards the end of the first half. He had the interception early in the second half, and that's what sparked the Panthers' run to be able to get themselves back in the ball game and go from it being a complete rout to, okay, we actually have ourselves a legitimate game here in the third quarter. So if he can clean it up, this team is looking really good. Like I said, they've found the balance on offense now. They're not just looking to, run the football down your throat with Wes Hills or just get the ball in his hands as many times as possible. We're starting to see that distribution more. Jonathan Adams is becoming more of a big piece in this offense, as he should be. Johnny Dixon is showing people that he is an excellent wide receiver as well. Again, Wes Hills is really good. You have Sage Surratt. There's so much talent on this offense, and to see it all being utilized now makes me feel a lot better about the Breakers right now. But now we're sitting here talking, okay, what's going on with McLeod Bethel Thompson and his turnover issues that he's kind of been dealing with the last few weeks. If he can clean that up, Breakers are a lot better of a team. But right now, I'm still just like, there's something worrying me about the Breakers, and I think it's that. It's turnovers from the quarterback spot. If that gets cleaned up, maybe I'll feel better about it. The 3-game losing streak also kind of scared me, but I'm a Breakers fan. I'm trying to keep my fandom aside, but maybe right now I'm looking at them a little more negatively than I should be because of just what I saw. But right now, I'm fine with them at number 5. They're a really talented team. Let me just, see them get back into the win column again. We were coming off a 3-game losing streak, snapping it with a win now. Let's see the Breakers do a little bit more and get back in more of the right direction, as opposed to just a one-off victory over against the Panthers team that I have ranked towards the bottom of the league right now. Next two teams, moving on to numbers 4 and number 3. The Gamblers will come in at that number 4 spot with their 20-19 victory over the Maulers. And then I have the Stars moving to number 3. So this is the first of any movement that we've seen in the power rankings up to this point here. And I have a team that won dropping and a team that lost rising up, as the Gamblers were in the number 3 spot last week and the Stars were in the number 4 spot. And here's my reasoning as to why. The Gamblers very much ran into the wall of a defense that is the Pittsburgh Maulers. And that was something I talked about at length when I was doing my picks for that game. I did pick the Gamblers to win, but I definitely expected them to struggle against that defense, and they did. Mark Thompson, absolute savior at the end of the game with his 33-yard touchdown run. I was really concerned about the Gamblers even getting into the end zone on that drive until he ripped that run to pull off the victory, essentially. He has firmly inserted himself into the MVP conversation. I know a lot of people are shouting Alex Magoo right now. Totally understand why. He is playing out of his absolute mind. But if anyone's a runner up to him right now, I think it is absolutely Mark Thompson and the 13 rushing touchdowns, 515 yards, and 5.2 yards per carry average that he is boasting right now currently. But again, this is one of those games where it went pretty much how I expected. Maulers did not get a ton going offensively, as the Gamblers defense has really evolved into one of the better units in the league. And then on top of that, they were dealing with a really tough defense in the Pittsburgh Maulers themselves. It was a grind. It really was. And, the Gamblers were this close to losing the game, but ultimately good fortitude. And, I'm happy to see, I'm happy to see them come away in a game like that with a victory where you pretty much were the lesser team for 3 quarters, but you ultimately were able to rely on your star playmakers to come away with a big victory there, that being Mark Thompson with the big rushing touchdown at the end of the game. I will say, though, the part of the big reason why I did drop them here is mainly because you probably should have lost that game. Safety Jeremiah Johnson with that 15-yard personal foul penalty that essentially set up the field goal that Chris Blewett missed. You should lose right there. You really should. And that is partially why I have them dropping here, because while I expected them to struggle against the Maulers, I didn't think that their victory would come the way it did. I expected it to be a tough, grindy game, but I expected them to come away with a more decisive victory. You still came away with a victory, things, tipped in your favor. The luck of the football gods, shined upon you, I guess, that game. But that's a game you probably should have lost, and losing to the Maulers right there would not have looked good and really would hurt you in your playoff chase. So hence why I have them dropping a spot here behind a team like the Philadelphia Stars, who are now moving into number 3 off of a 27-24 loss against the Birmingham Stallions. Case Cookus was telling head coach Skip Holtz at the end of the game, you could hear the audio from it in the clip that I saw, he's saying, man, I hate playing you guys. That's the amount of respect and understanding of just how good the Birmingham Stallions are. Case Cookus, wheeling and dealing in this game, 3 touchdowns. He only had 1 interception. I was really impressed by the way the Stars played this game because I felt like it was a big litmus test for them where if you get completely throttled in this game, because the Stallions have been a really good team this year, you can kind of see, okay, the North might not be threatening at all, but you, as what a lot of people consider, and myself included, as the best team in the North Division, absolutely taking it to what a lot of people are looking at as the favorite of the South Division, speaks volumes to where this Stars team is right now. Corey Coleman has been absolutely electric for the team. Big 55-yard grab. He had the touchdown, 4 receptions for 107 yards total on the day, opening things up for Devin Gray as well, who had like 70-some-odd yards in his own right. This offense, when they can get at least a decent running game going, just, again, is leaps and bounds better. I don't know what the heck happened to Colburn in this game. He had 1 rush for 13 yards at the beginning of the game, and then it was all just Dexter Williams the rest of the way. Not sure what that was all about. I looked everywhere. I didn't see anything about injuries, but I didn't see him at all the rest of the game. So if anyone knows anything about that I just missed, I don't know what happened to him or where he went, but he was MIA, and I'm curious as to what the heck happened there, because I'm curious if he was in during this game and if he wasn't hurt and he just wasn't getting snaps for whatever reason. How does this game look? Because I really like Matt Colburn, and I've talked about this a lot. I think this is a better team with Matt Colburn getting the football, being a receiver out of the backfield, or running the football on the ground, whatever it may be. And I spoke about this a few weeks back where, I was very adamant that this team, when Matt Colburn's doing his thing and they're scheming up for Corey Coleman, who is really looking like a star wide receiver for the Stars, no pun intended there, this is a much better unit. So I'm curious how this game turns out if Matt Colburn is maybe running the football. Although I don't want to discredit Dexter Williams. I think he did a solid job in his absence. But ultimately, this game just comes down to defense. And this is where this team has kind of struggled this year. Just defensively, the Stars have not quite been there. You let up over 300 yards passing, 100 yards rushing. You are the best team in the North right now, thankfully, because you have an offense that I don't think anyone in the North Division can keep pace with at this point. And it's pretty much all Stars offense, all North long. So at this point, you're the best team in the North. But defensively, you have got to tighten up these next few weeks if you want to stand a chance against any of the South Division teams right now. Aside from the Showboats, who have kind of a rocky offense still, I would say, the Gamblers, the Breakers, when they're playing well, and the Stallions can all move the football and get in the end zone. They have a ton of talent offensively. You need to be able to play defense if you want any shot of winning that championship, should you be the representative of the North in that game. As for the final 2 teams, though, to finish up the power rankings here, we are looking at number 2, the Memphis Showboats, and number 1, the Birmingham Stallions. These 2 teams also staying put where they are. So the only changes in my power rankings this week being the Gamblers at number 4 and moving the Stars into number 3. The Showboats, with their win over the Generals, I think this is a really good win offensively. You're starting to find some more. I'm still very 50-50 on Cole Kelly. I will say the dude's a tough SOB, and he's willing to put his body on the line to put you in a position to convert whenever it is necessary. So hats off to him. They were kind of comparing him to a Ben Roethlisberger type look, and in the Todd Haley offense that they got going over there, kind of makes sense. I get what they're doing. He's not Ben Roethlisberger though, but big man, not afraid to lower his shoulder and make contact to push in for a first down. So I do respect his game. The dude is tough as they come. So I really respect what he's doing, but he does have some moments here or there where they just, you have to wonder, is he going to be able to go toe-to-toe with one of these other Southern teams if things start to get out of hand? Because this Showboats team right now is truly being carried by the defense, and it's going to take a massive defensive effort by this defense these final couple of weeks and going into the playoffs for them to even have a hope of making an appearance in the championship come Championship Sunday for the South. But with the emergence of a running game now, Kareth White, big 100-yard rushing game for him. He had 23 carries on the day, touchdown to boot, 4.4 yards per carry. This team is in a very odd spot. I have them at number 2 because I'm happy with what I'm getting from the ground game. Like I said, I'm 50-50 on Cole Kelly. When he does a good job protecting the ball, I think he manages the game well enough that this team could threaten all the way through to the end of the season. And the defense has been phenomenal. This has been the best defense during their 5-game winning streak, I would say, in the USFL right now. At this very moment, arguably, they're the best defense. And I would probably go ahead and say that they are definitively, in my opinion. But there is a strong argument for those of you who maybe don't think that the Showboats are probably the best defense in the USFL right now with the way that they are playing. And then at number 1, to wrap up the list, we're talking the Birmingham Stallions. And I don't really think there's too much you have to say about this team right now. Alex McGough sits firmly atop the conversation for MVP at this point. His passer rating is well above the 100-yard mark, the 100 mark for the season altogether. I believe 6 out of the 8 games he's played this season are plus 100 for his passer rating. On top of that, during this game alone, 24 of 35, he had 68.6% completion percentage. He had 333 yards passing. He had 3 touchdowns. He had a few carries as well on the ground. He is as good as they come right now in the USFL at the quarterback position. And at this point, like I said, Mark Thompson does deserve some consideration for what he is doing because he is keeping the Gamblers alive right now offensively. However, I don't know where this Stallions team would be at this point in the season if not for Alex McGough playing out of his absolute mind. He is probably going to be on a roster for a team somewhere. There's no shot that he is not like QB3, especially with the way the NFL changed their rule now, with the way quarterbacks can be handled in the NFL, adding an extra roster spot for strictly a reserve quarterback. There's no way that anyone sees what he's been doing in the USFL and doesn't think he should at least be QB3 somewhere. You're not going to tell me that there is, if we're looking at what, there's not 96 quarterbacks, because if teams are going to be carrying 3 QBs in the NFL now, you got 32 teams times 3. There's not 96 quarterbacks better than Alex McGough in the way he's playing right now. He is going to be on an NFL roster, which means he's probably not playing in the USFL next year, which is kind of sad, but this is exactly what the USFL is built for. Alex McGough's been unbelievable. Davian and Davis and Jay Sternberger are turning into a legitimate 1-2 punch at wide receiver and tight end. And the scary thing is, the defense right now, while you could be concerned with the way that they've kind of let some teams move this season, they've been dealing with injuries, and they're still just bending and not necessarily always breaking. I would say the Stars really pushed them to the limit this week, but they can get healthier and they can get better. And that's a scary thing to think about. This team can get healthier and the defense can get better than where they are right now. If they do, good luck to everyone else. I am a Breakers fan, and right now, I don't really know if any other team is going to represent the South in the USFL Championship other than the Stallions. That's just kind of where I stand right now. It's a fun team to watch. They get it done every single week, it feels like, and no task is too impossible for them to overcome and complete. It's a fun thing to watch they got going on over in Birmingham. A little bit envious, I will say that. But those are my power rankings for this week. If you made it all the way through to the end of the video, I appreciate you as always. Make sure you comment down below your rankings, thoughts on my rankings, everything, your thoughts and opinions on the games this weekend, where teams stand as they push their way towards the playoffs. Let me hear your thoughts. Would love to discuss in the comment section down below. But that is it for me. I will see you all in the next video. I appreciate your time. Have a good one.